So,
How are you? You on vacation again?
I don't have vacation.
Oh, I'm sorry, down to Florida.
I have trips.
Trips.
All right, Anna, you ready?
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know if Jean's coming, so we may want to.
Can I
Jay's
Can I
online.
switch chairs on this baby chair then?
You can, yeah. I think
Would
you
you
can
like
get it
this
up.
one?
First
No,
come,
it's still
first
here,
serve
and
one.
then we'll,
Choice of,
we can move. If,
I need the power.
I don't, yeah. Let me take it over there.
Oh,
Here you go.
I never stop.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, really?
all right, well, we got Jay online and 5 in the room. We're missing Jean. But with that, I'm going to call the Lunenburg Finance Committee to order on Thursday, April 24th. In accordance with the requirements of the meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over Lunenburg Public Access channel and on Facebook Live, and will be uploaded to Lunenburg Access YouTube channel after the meeting. If you want to join via Zoom to ask questions or via the phone, if you go to lunenburgma.gov on the calendar, you will see the agenda for the meeting, and there's a hyperlink to the Zoom as well as the call-in number. And with that, if we can rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, so announcements, this is our final meeting before town meeting, final finance committee meeting before town meeting, which was a week from Saturday. So this is the last time to deliberate in this forum before we set up front at the middle high school auditorium. Any other announcements from the board?
We were supposed to have a municipal building design committee yesterday. We didn't get a quorum. So I was told that we're going to try to have it either at 5:30 or 6 on Zoom on Monday. So if anybody is listening or watching or whatever, look out for that. So Monday, 5:30 or 6, Zoom. We always do Zoom anyways, but hopefully we'll get a quorum for that.
Okay, thank you. I guess one other announcement or maybe question for the group here is the club, which is the teen center, asked for us to maybe field a team at Are You Smarter Than a Sixth Grader? I think we had 2 people that said they could do it. I think, was it Jean and Tom?
Yeah.
I can't. I'm away on, my girls are graduating that weekend. We need at least 3.
When is it?
It's the May 9th. I've done it in the past.
I may not be smarter than a fifth grader.
Finance Committee had a perfect score one year, and we still managed to lose, although we are still throwing the red flag that we buzzed in first, but
Yeah, we lost last year, too.
all right, well, so you don't have to answer on the spot, but if one more is able to volunteer, then we can field the team. Just respond to the email that I had sent out to everyone. I guess there's no reason if you want to bring your spouse and make it really interested in or something, you could do that. It may not be good for your marriage, but it is an option.
Did you hear that, Karen?
Oh, yeah, she's not on, but she knows. All right, is there any public comment from the public? Name and address, yeah.
Jennifer Duffy, I'm 684 at Flat Hill Road. I just wanted a couple questions about the line item for the town band in the warrant that's coming up for discussion at the town meeting. I was wondering, a little bit more about how that works. So there's kind of two questions. One is about like town participation in that and how that works, and then also like how the sponsorships for the concerts work. So I don't know if you want me to ask questions, or do you want to just tell me how that is, what you know about it, or what's...
So I'm getting a little bit of an echo, but that's
Yeah, I don't
not
know how
your
to make it
fault.
better.
Let me make sure I'm muted. Which line item was it again?
About the band concerts, the summer band
Oh,
concerts.
okay. Yeah, so the band concert line item, Mr. Ashambo he runs that. You would probably reach out to him if you wanted to participate. I know that they asked for kind of sponsors for certain things to help with it throughout the year, but is that the question?
You got kind of for both of them. So I guess my question is if somebody wanted to, like, I was looking for more transparency on how to participate and also how to get sponsorships. And I was interested to know, like, how much the sponsorships are to, like, be considered the sponsor for a concert. And if that is, like, is the budget based on having a sponsorship for each of the concerts? So just kind of wanted to understand, like, how that works because I know for other community bands that I'm in that it works a little bit differently than the town paying for the concert, so.
Okay.
So what I heard is how does it work in terms of the money that they receive from the town? How is that applied? Is it like a stipend?
Yeah,
that's
like-
the question? And is it a open entity, like, people can participate or not, other residents?
Yeah, like I couldn't find like contact information or anything because I think that on Facebook I've just seen it's like the Lunenburg Town Band, but I don't see any way to actually reach out to somebody for that.
Right. And, and I hear you, Chris, on like, we know who it is, right?
Yeah.
That runs it. I mean, it might be someone's neighbor, who knows? And it's like someone's teacher at the time. But I know Ms. Duffy, I'm imagining someone in town coming in and knowing, oh, there's a town band, and they want to participate. And I think what she's saying is, where is that information live? Or is this someone that we pay third party and we have no involvement on? And I think that's something that we probably should clarify with the town, because being new to the town, at times, and I already been here for 20 years, knowing how things work and how to contact is something, it's just too many layers to participate on something that's part of government. Like, if there is a $6,000 line in our budget, that's government that we're funding through taxes.
Yes.
We should be clear about these events and how to participate, if there is a way to do it. Because I used to feel that way very strongly about events that used to happen at TCP, like, how is this happening? Who's funding this? How do I participate on that?
Okay.
And it's just a question of making things more clear and inclusionary.
Yeah, I think this time of the year is kind of when bands usually start like getting together things for the summer, what they're going to play in that. So it seemed like and also with the town meeting coming up, seemed like a good time to ask about both participation and if that can be shared, and then also like how the sponsorships work, because if that process can be made available to everybody.
Okay, so I'll send a note to town manager from the town side, and I don't know if you know Mr. A. He will probably be at town meeting if you're going to be there. Or Karen can make an introduction as well, and I can try to reach out to him.
I just meant like as a general for everybody, not for me.
No, I
specifically.
understand,
Right.
but it's a good line of question to follow up with him on.
Yeah, we just need to make it, what is it? I think that's really good, so thank you for bringing
Sure.
that.
Thank you.
I also think it's $600, not $6,000.
No, I think it's 6,000.
Okay.
Because I know it used to be 5,000. The other thing that she says about sponsorships, I used to think that the sponsorship was just you can go and do things, but I don't know if there was any actual sponsorship. Because it's a town, I don't know if there's an exchange of money on that.
Okay, yeah, we can look into helping with that. Dave?
Yeah.
Do you want a microphone?
Well, no, I think you can hear me from here.
Well, the booth will bring you one.
Yeah,
There, it's coming.
I'm a little shaky.
So you should have asked for an ice cream or something. Not like,
No. Yeah, very good. Dave Rogers, 82 82 Highland Street. And I just want to share with you some of the concerns that I have, because I'm very concerned about where we're going and why we're doing certain things. Suffice it to say, I've been a participant. Karen and I have lived here for 50 years, and I served on a bunch of boards and commissions and what have you. In fact, I was even chairman of the Finance Committee twice. Having said that, I feel really antsy about taking money from free cash, taking money from Chapter 70, the roads, and that sort of thing, because, I think I was chairman when that happened, and I regretted it forever after, because, it never comes back, and I just don't want to take from Peter to pay Paul and to have a real bad problem further down the road. I'm also very concerned with the school situation and the many different problems that are there and how they expect to solve those problems. And what really concerns me about that is that there does not seem to be a real plan. I mean, not doing an override, which I'm not a great, I don't care for them that much, but, and the people saying that it's really 2 years from now, so I hope this board will do all they can to sort this out so that we can make it an understandable situation. And because I think we're ahead, going to have some real problems. So I hope you discuss some of these things and give us folks in the audience, some guidance, because I think we are in need of it. Thank you very much.
thank you, Dave. Just quickly, the Chapter 70 to be used to augment the pavement management line,
Yeah.
that is not in the budget right now.
Okay.
Now, Chapter 70 does have a balance over $2 million right now.
90.
Chapter 9, you start talking
Oh,
about
Chapter 70. Okay, sorry. Confused myself. Yeah, Chapter 70, our increases on that are like 1.3% per year now. That's become the last 4 years, it's like 1.3%. I think I wrote all the figures in the warrant here, so I'm sure you've read it.
Yes.
That needs addressing. We all agree with that. I think everyone in town agrees with that, and that goes to Beacon Hill, like you said. And then free cash, yeah, that's something to debate. It's not best fiscal policy to do that, but, is it, to me, my view on that this year is that we didn't put things in stabilization funds. So we're kind of almost drawing from stabilization funds for this 1 year. We can't do that forever, but you're right, we do need a holistic plan on this, wholeheartedly agree.
And to piggyback on Chris, sorry. I agree with everything you just said about, first of all, thank you for coming out. I appreciate questions. I love to be questioned. I agree with Chris on the three things that he just talked about. We do all agree that school committee and school budget is a little wonky. They have hired a finance person in the schools to help straighten this out, so we are on that path. And we also are going to make it a priority. I think Anna is really looking into that deeply and has given some presentations on that. So I want to assure you and everybody else that we are thinking about it quite a lot. You want to add?
Well, now they brought me into the conversation.
Now you're in.
Well, I think so first of all, let me just say, I am looking into a lot of numbers related to the school. I have a big spreadsheet open on my computer right now. there is no misappropriation of funds. There is no one stealing money from anybody. I just want to say that because, Lundberg has had a history of that. I think what's making it difficult now is the budget practices makes it so that it's very unclear and not transparent, and it makes it really hard to assess why the school budget needed such a boost this year. It's not explainable to me. And I am trying to find out and to build a picture because, a good financial reporting does tell you a story. At least to me, it talks to me. But, the part that I think the citizens can help us is, I was talking with someone in town government today, about, how to improve that transparency and that budget process. And we can come up with whatever policies or methods to do these things. But if the school committee does not sign up to partake on those policies, it means nothing, right? And the charter, their requirement, I don't feel like they met this year's with what they did with the budget met this year, the requirements for the charter, which is if there is any large changes in the lines, it should be presented with a report. We have not received that. But I think we need to ask the school department to become partners in working with the town on having very good and clear practices related to their budget and to their finances. And that's where the citizens can help us by letting the school committee members know that this is something you expect from them, that you expect them to be transparent, to work collaborative with the town, and to help us have good financial sound policies. Because every year having a budget that you need 20% increase year over year to just be at the same year's level service, it's insane to me. Like, not with, instead of being combative and critical of anything, just come in, let's meet, and let's have sound policies that are transparent, and let's work together.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and I agree. I think this is perfect because I was going to actually talk about this a little bit tonight, and it'll be quick, Chris, I promise.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
When you talk about having a relationship with departments, specifically the school committee, I think we need to cultivate that relationship with all of our departments as opposed to them coming in and presenting a budget and being nervous and what are we going to get and what are we going to cut. If we have a relationship and a collaborative partnership with all of the departments, it's a lot easier to submit your budget during budget times. Having these standard operating procedures, possibly a template that all the departments can use together so that it's familiar, and then our expectations of what we need in there. Going back 3 years, I think Chris and Anna both mentioned that we should have something that goes back 3 years, what the year we're talking about, and then maybe a projection of the needs for the next couple of years. I think, in our off-season, of non-budget season, it's something that we should really think about putting into place so that next budget season, and Chris, I know you'll agree with this, we have a longer schedule of when things are due, so we have due diligence and time to look over things, and that, we can be a better finance committee for the town and for the departments. We can really look at things and really make decisions and not have 2, 5, 6, 7-hour meetings every week for like a month and a half. It's trying. So,
But I agree with you. The one thing that is very critical for that to happen is because the way the school department is run and the laws that applies to them, they need to be very willing participants on that. And I know, with our requests of information and all, at some point, Chris received an email saying, maybe we should come to the FinCom later in the process.
yeah.
Right, so, and, you know, that's where I'm saying, you know, it'd be great if residents could really reach out to the school committee members and ask them to engage in good faith, in collaboration with the town side of things to get into a good, very clear process, very transparent, for the sake of our residents.
Agreed, and I think this is the perfect time. We have a new town manager, we're getting a new superintendent, there's a new finance person at the school, so this is just school committee-wide. We have a finance committee that's new and fiery and ready to go. We have new members on our town council, so I think this is the perfect opportunity to maybe resurrect some of the things that we're talking about here with all this fresh, clean slate going on, and really start with a transparent guidelines for what the expectations are. And involving residents is super important in this, in a positive way. And to have them be on board as well, I think it's only going to benefit us, the town, the schools, and it's going to leak on to other departments. So I think now's the time. Now's definitely the time with all these new folks coming into the town and into the government.
Okay, anything else, Dave?
One other thing, and I wouldn't know how to begin to look for this, but I think it would be important for everyone to understand how much money we really do get from the state and from other venues and whatever. Because, sometimes this just it's in and it's out and nobody knows the difference. And it is certainly moving ahead. I think it'll be more important to understand where the money comes from, what it goes for, and just a more participatory kind of perspective.
Okay.
Maybe there could be some kind of basically, a lot of people, there's a lot of numbers being thrown around during
Sure.
budget time, and you probably know way more than I do about it, because you've been around forever and know you were on, the
Is that an old
select
joke?
board. No, no.
Because you're right.
But you were on the finance committee, select board, so you know, like Dave Passios, you have history. And one of the things is that it took me a few years to understand some of these things. And I can't imagine somebody who isn't on a committee like this, who has a regular life, trying to understand all this Chapter 70, Chapter 90,
Yep.
grants, and all the other stuff. Proposition 2.5 and all that. So I think it would be nice to have an educational thing, maybe put it on the webpage, maybe that so people could, okay. So when they hear these things, maybe they're not experts on it, but at least they go, oh, that's the thing that the state does, and okay, that's fine. Because it is complicated, and I honestly think that the issues that we're having today have nothing to do, small amount to do of what we are doing, what not we, the finance committee, but the school committee, everybody else. We're in a situation where you got big increases in insurance, you got salaries that you had to increase because we were saying a couple of years ago, we're losing all these employees, we got to pay them properly, and so we did. So what are you going to do? So now you have increases in expenses, plus, insurance and all the other things that go up. And then our real estate taxes went 2.5%, that's it, that's without an override. And then the Chapter 70 money, 1.3%, that's not going to do it. So if I had that budget and that was the only income that I had, I'd be sitting there cutting major portions of my budget, and that's what you got to do. Or you do an override, or you do this, or you do that. But this is not our problem. This is a bigger problem, a statewide problem, probably a national problem that we have to kind of think about. And
I agree, Tom.
yeah. But I also think that doing better here can make that problem a little bit better. So I think all the things that were explained, we talked about getting software, budget software would be great, make data a lot easier to transfer, move around, play with numbers. The poor school committee, they were desperately trying to figure out what do I do with the money that I was given to educate our kids? And they were trying to figure out, and they spent a lot, almost all their time doing that. Well, so that's what they did, because that's the time that they had to do. So I get it. But there's, and then we're going, hey, we want it sooner. And they're like, well, we're not ready yet. Software can help. I think also maybe putting some deadlines that they need to meet to help us. We don't really have any authority, as you know.
Sure.
We don't have, all we're doing is saying, yes, we like it, or no, we don't. We can't tell anybody to do anything. We can just recommend. So, but what I think we can do is put a spotlight on various different things so that people can either accept the spotlight or say, nope, we're going to do it anyways.
One last thing, and I don't want to take any more time than I need to. What's the status of the computer system and all of that ramification? Did we work that thing out?
The Munis?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my understanding that now that it's in the cloud, that most of the issues are behind us. That in talking with Ezzy, that's what I've heard.
Okay. The other thing right off that concerns me, because I was a water commissioner for 40 years, we've got some big problems coming down. But the other thing is the sewer commission. I mean, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but I don't think they have enough for a quorum, and so I wonder what's happening with the bills. How is this gonna, transcend to the folks,
Yeah, there's no doubt we need participation in government, right? I mean, all of us are busy on this committee, right? I travel all the time. I have a full-time job. I got all sorts of personal stuff, but I still dedicate some time to this.
Yep. Thank God.
People just need to get involved, right? I agree with you on that. And I think you find that it's not as bad as you may think it is. And
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, but until people fill out the volunteer forms or run into me at Hannaford and I threaten to blackmail you or something, we need volunteers. We certainly do, Dave. I agree with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
One thing I'll add, Tom, that in terms of what we can do, what we cannot do. I was exchanging emails with a school committee member, and he said, because I do think that based on the delta of the increase in budget reductions, I mean, I already spoke a lot about that. I think there's something that may not be clear now, but maybe by the end of FY26 it will clear off, just be clear. And he said, it's not just Lunenburg, it's everywhere in the state. There's something, we are suffering these same pressures as we are. And I said, yes, and however, Lunenburg last year passed $1 million budget override that went straight to the school budget that stays there. That $1 million, 948, now has already another 2.5% on it because, the school budget increases. And then I did look up how many overrides passed last year, because that data is available in the state. And last year, there are 351
Yes.
towns and cities in Massachusetts. Last year, 16 cities and towns passed an override that was designated for schools. And I even counted the ones that were overall. There were a handful only that passed that did not have any mentions to the school, and they were for a very specific purpose. So we were one of 16 towns and cities in Massachusetts last year that addressed this issue head on and passed an override to the schools. And I think we need to remember that we did do something. And I think, when we're asking for transparency, please participate on this process of budgeting. We shouldn't hear comments such as, well, when we pass a budget, we can do anything we want. And that's not the kind of comment that should come from a school committee member in the public meeting. It just doesn't feel good. Like, I just voted for an override. I supported that. So I think that kind of conversation attitude, it's detrimental to the let's work together. But, Lunenburg is doing its part. We did pass an override, and we were one of 16 cities and towns last year. That is no small potatoes. So,
Yeah, agreed. And I worked for the town of Arlington for 15 years. They just built a brand-new high school, much larger, much bigger budget. They rehabbed a couple of other schools in the town. That town's flooded with new families. It might be a good idea maybe to talk with other towns that have these issues and find out what they put into place prior to their builds and their overrides. Like, what were the expectations of the fund, where the funds were going, things like that. That's too late for us. But I think we can go on the back end of it, and anything that comes in the future, any monies that are asked for in the future, we need to really say, hey, this is what you got. We don't really know what you spent it on, specifically line by line. When we move forward, like, where are you spending the money? Like, where are the dollars going to be spent? We know that you're doing your due diligence, you're doing the best that you can for the students and for the education. We have I don't think anyone's stealing money. I don't think anyone's not trying to educate the children. I think everybody has really good intentions. It's just what the practices are. So maybe we should reach out to one of these 16 towns and say, hey, do you have any issues? What are your challenges? What have you done? What's going on? And, again, form collaborative partnerships with them. Why not?
At the end of the day, I think one word really hits a lot of points, and that's frustration. Every time you turn around, there's something somewhere, someplace, and we don't have what we need, et cetera, et cetera. So we have to take a deep breath and understand what the issue is.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a general theme. And, I would just say that this problem is not going away, and I think we're going to see state funding get really even shriveled up more in the coming years when we start to look at what the state wants to do or deferred maintenance on infrastructure within the state. I mean, they're talking about multi-billions of dollars project to put in new bridges on the Cape. You can't go down 495, 95 or whatever without seeing, huge projects occurring. And somebody has to pay for that. And, the state is in the red as it is. So, this funding that we get from the state, I think, is going to be even more constrained. And I'm concerned for that. I'm concerned for the fact that we're not funding our current services as well as we could right now. We about every week we talk about the extra shift for the fire department. We're talking about we're staring down the barrel of a issue with the trash system that we have in town, and that might have to go away because of the recycling situation. There's a lot of things. I ran some rough numbers, for my own personal use, and I'm not going to put numbers out here because they were just estimates on my part, but if we continue down this road of override, and more and more debt projects, we're looking at a substantial tax increase on the people of this town. And, my community where I live, I have multiple retirees. I have multiple people that are single parent families. And in talking to them, they don't know I'm on the finance committee, and I'd like to keep it that way because I like to talk to people, just get their honest opinions of things going on. And they are really concerned about the cost of everything. now we start telling people that, hey, in 3 years, your income taxes are going to be, or your property taxes are going to be 20, 30% higher than they are right now. That's a serious consideration, right? And, you know, everything is extremely expensive, and it's not getting better. So, yeah, I think long-term, you know, we really need to start looking at how we plan in this town, and long-term, our income versus what we're putting out, and stop really living on that ragged edge, pulling money from here and there just to scrape by our shoestrings, because it's going to get a lot worse. And I feel bad going to the people of this town continuously and saying, give us more, right? And yeah, 2.5% a year, it doesn't sound like a lot, but, you know, we say, okay, it's 2.5, and then we want 6% more for the override. Or, you know, so now, you know, like all compounds, it's not only 2.5%, the following year now it's 2.5% plus 2.5% of that 6%. So it's a considerable amount. So long story short, yeah, we need to start looking down the road versus immediate future. So.
All right, any other public comment?
I was wondering when you were coming up.
Well, I don't know anybody else. I know Dave. Hi, Dave.
All right, nice to see you.
I know Dave has, you know, some personal stuff, so it's good for him to get home early, if you want to. John Bowen, 162 Highland Street. I just want to quickly comment on what was just raised. Mr. Rupp, as a conservative Republican myself, 2.5% and $14.36 per thousand is totally 100% unequivocally unsustainable to be able to manage a town with a $49 million budget. Totally, 100%. It's not sustainable. We need to look at other avenues of revenue, other avenues of generating funds, and it can't come from building multiple housing units or townhomes along Mass Ave. It can't come from that. So people really have to kind of look into themselves to say, and I've said this over the years, don't say I don't love Lunenburg. I love Lunenburg unless you're going to put your money into your community. If your children need it, then you pay it. If your elderly need it, then you pay it. And you don't complain. You take it out of your pocket. $8 to have a bagel and a coffee at Starbucks, 5 days a week. That's $160 a month. But I can't pay $30 a month. There's a problem. That's what I wanted to say just with regard to that. But I can appreciate the issue, the elderly. I can appreciate the low income. I can appreciate all that. Okay. However, the reality is $49 million budget, 2.5% increase every year. It keeps going up and up. Now we have a municipal design building, which is going to be deficit spending. We're spending money that we don't have, that we're not sure we're going to have. We're not increasing the tax money. We're in trouble. We're in trouble. And like you said, this is compound interest. And if anybody knows what a credit card is, that's called compound interest. They make you pay the minimum amount over a long period of time and you debt spend. And that's exactly what happens. And you know who makes the money? It's definitely not the townspeople that are getting the return. It's going to be who? The people you're borrowing the money from. So that being said, I just wanted to go over a couple of things, and I thank you for that comment. That was excellent, absolutely excellent. And I'm glad that you speak to people in the community with that regard. I just wanted to say, I went to the Cemetery Commission meeting today. I swear to God, this is like now for short people. Okay, I went to the Cemetery Commission meeting this morning, okay, and I have a warrant article that's present, okay, which you all are aware of, which reins in spending and gives the people more control over the spending of the sale of lots money. What we have here is we had a cemetery commission just listen to the meeting this morning, okay? There's already been 192 views since this morning. Listen to it. Oh, I don't know what it costs for perpetual care about each burial. I don't know how much goes here. I don't know how much goes here. This is your board. Your board has no idea about finance. They had Ezekiel Ayala there today to explain what he already explained last year about turnover policy and the use of money based on statute, okay, and how bequests are handled and stuff like that. Why are we taking Ezekiel's time to do that again? Why? Why do we have to do that again? The board should be able to explain it to the people. It doesn't happen. Let me explain. You ready? It's $100 per cremation in the cemetery, okay? So now, a cremation, okay, is, you know, you get burned, okay, and you get put in an urn, okay, and you're about this big, okay? It's not a body, okay? So it's $800 for one grave, $500 goes to the burial rights fund, okay, which is the sale of lots fund, and $300 goes to perpetual care. How the cemetery works is the cemetery sells 2 plots at a time, because usually they have husband and wife, they want a full body, and then they can put 10 cremations on top of those full bodies. So you have 2 bodies plus 20 more that you can place. So you have 22 bodies that you can put into one location. And I don't think people are really aware of that. But if you just put a cremation in, you can't put a body on top, you can't do anything with it, that's it. But if you have bodies there, you get more bang for your buck. Here's the problem, okay? The 10 cremations that go on top, you have no bodies that get, that go into the bottom, have no bodies that can be put on top, okay? The issue is that no money goes into perpetual care from cremations. So it's $100 a cremation, but no money goes in the perpetual care fund, which is the state's trust fund of which we only get interest from. Now, do you see this here? Look, I'm not on the cemetery commission, am I? But I can explain to you the money. Your cemetery commission today had no idea. And I bet you guys have some idea. This board has an advisory capability that needs to call in, not your cemetery commission, the people who run the money. Do you know who knows all this money? Todd Holman, your cemetery superintendent. Why? He sells the plots. He meets with the families. He sits with the families, and he nurtures the families during their time of need. He's your face of your cemetery, not your cemetery commission, which is just an advisory thing. Now, Ezekiel said that they have access to the sale of lots money, okay? Now, the sale of lots money has a substantial amount of money, some $96,000 in it, okay? They don't use it properly. Walk through your cemeteries. Do they look any different than the last 3.5 years? Do they? No. So what are they using $96,000 for? It's not sustainable. Just like 2.5% increase overrides and things like that, not sustainable, okay? A new direction needs to be had, and it needs to be considered. The Select Board has already said that it needs to be considered the Mutual Cemetery Benefit Corporation that I set up. The warrant article that I put in, okay, starts the beginning of that. That says that the townspeople and the people who own plots in the cemetery have a say by voting yes on that warrant article, okay, to what happens with the sale of lots money and what care happens to the cemetery, because there's none happening. We have to begin somewhere where the people begin to take charge to benefit the community and not leave it up to a board to make a decision that they don't know what they're talking about. And this is what happens when you have unqualified people involved in government, unqualified to want or even want to learn. These people have been on this commission for over 3 years. They don't even know how much it costs to bury a person. If somebody emails me and I'm on the cemetery commission and says, I'd like to know how much it costs, I don't say, go talk to Todd Holman. I send them a sheet, and then I communicate with them on the phone and say, this is how much it costs. Would you like to meet with the cemetery superintendent to be able to negotiate a plot buy? That's called business. You sell plots, but our plots are not affordable. Okay, it's not affordable. It costs $6. I did the numbers. $6 for each grave to be mowed, cared for, you know, leveled off if it needs it, okay, new grass seed placed on it, and then all the additional areas within the cemetery that are open in between them, you know, the rows and things like that. All is DPW's business. But for the most part, it's $4 a lot. You get 6,000 graves. So how much do you need a year? Just do the math. It's pretty simple. Unsustainable. Absolutely unsustainable. We have
John, can we?
yeah, we have Revolutionary War veterans here. 250 years. Concord did something. Why didn't we do something? Why wasn't it planned for our veterans here? Because we're too worried about what? What? who's not doing what instead of what is necessary for the needs for our cemetery. And that's what I'm trying to explain to you, is that take over and do something, put something on your agenda and say, this is how we need this money to be handled, and start making recommendations about its needs and recognize them. Because I'm going to tell you right now, Bill Bernard said today that he throws away records. Well, that's not true. I clarified that. That's not true. Okay? So you have somebody who doesn't run the cemetery talking about the cemetery. Bill Bernard, he's just the manager. Todd Holman runs the cemetery. Where has Todd Holman been at any cemetery commission meeting, at any budget meeting before this board to show you what the needs are of the cemetery? That's what I want to see. But thank you very much for your time. And I appreciate the extra time, Commission.
You're welcome. All right, any other public comment? Any public comment from the board? Or I guess we're a commission. All right.
We're going to have a talk about budget, right?
Yep.
It's on their agenda. All right.
Yep, so, let's see, I did get something. So, the next item up on the agenda is, finance or, town manager report. And town manager just asked me to remind that booklets for the town meeting have been mailed to households, and there are several hundred extras that we will disperse around town and to bring to town meetings. The booklet has been posted online for folks that would like to view the material on the computer. Large print versions of the budget will be available at town meeting. And then one other thing is the school department will once again be selling a limited number of pre-bagged lunches for town meeting. An email will go out to town officials to reserve a lunch. We probably all got that email today. And then residents will be able to purchase lunch on a first-come, first-served basis for $8 from 11 to 1.
So we're there all day, breakfast to dinner.
Yeah, well, I don't know when we're going to start serving dinner, but I think,
I'm kidding, I'm just kidding.
lately I tend to leave the meeting and go to the airport for a flight, but luckily I don't have to do that this year. Leave town meeting, go on an 18-hour flight. How do you like that? Okay. All right, so the next thing on the agenda is new business. Just kind of, I put it in as final annual town meeting discussions. There is one thing that to bring to attention, and town manager sent me an email and I forwarded it, which is the consent calendar. They tend to ask finance committee if we agree with the consent calendar. So I've emailed it to you and I've put it in a folder under annual town meeting in the SharePoint. So if we do agree with it, I would entertain a motion to recommend approving the consent calendar. And if people don't know what the consent calendar is, it's a way of passing through 2, 4, 6, 8, and there's 11 articles on here, I think, in one motion. So we get about a third of the articles out of the way with one vote. Personally, I'm okay with it. Is everyone else?
I haven't had a chance to go through and just double check what they.
Yep.
Yeah,
I think it's all things we voted to approve.
yeah, they all are very boilerplate things that we do almost every year or some
Yeah.
version of it.
All right. So with that, I would entertain a motion to recommend approval of the consent calendar.
So moved?
Second?
All right, we have to roll call vote. Roll call vote, Jay,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Anna,
Aye.
Tanya,
Aye?
Tom,
Aye.
and an aye for myself. All right. Okay. One thing I did want to mention as it relates to the town meeting, there's been some discussions about excluded debt and whether if we were to pass both excluded debt articles, the Marshall Park and the municipal building, whether that would tie up that debt over the next 18 years. I think there was a rumor going around that that would be the case. I've actually run some projections, and in that debt calculator that we used when we voted on the articles, I actually added a new tab in that and put in about 7 or 8 potential current and future possibilities on that. And in all cases, there is times where excluded debt goes to about 12%, where our policy is 11, but there's no regular debt at this point in about 4 years. There's absolutely none. So I think there would be an exception to that policy for like a year or two. I also added in there the last 5 years of what percentages we were at. And back in 2020, we were at about 11-ish% at that point. I just got more data from ESI that I'll put in there, and I think we were well in excess of maybe 14% of excluded debt when we brought on the high school, middle school. I got to verify that, but so that's just a long way to say that if you want to poke around in that, there's kind of the first tab on it. You can put Ys and Ns on the various scenarios and just see what the percentages do. For borrowing of like 30-year or 20-year items, I just went proportional to other ones. So if I used the kind of spread, if you will, of the municipal design and said this is what it would be for a Turkey Hill proportionally. The other one I put in there is an $110 million Turkey Hill new build. That's the number that someone on school committees thinks a new school will cost now, with 50% MSBA matching funds on that. So it's really a $55 million to the town. Apparently, schools are now all 9-figure builds. There's actually one in Boston, in Roxbury, that's a $700 million vocational high school. So I did read one article, it's like, when's the first $1 billion Massachusetts school gonna come online? And it's probably sometime soon. So I did model that in there as well. And again, I put it at, for now, I put it at, I think, 10 years out, because they got to go through all sorts of studies and, 10% plans and 30% plans and all that. So it seems like a reasonable time. And again, it did keep us right around that, under the 14% and right around the 11%. So as it relates to debt, in keeping within our policy guidelines, we can quote afford to do all these because debt is rolling off and that sort of thing. The other thing that's in there is I looked at how much we actually get on the 2.5% plus new growth. And if I looked over a 10-year period, excluding the year of the override, so last year, we average a 4.2% increase year over year over that time frame. So there's kind of this notion that we only get a 2.5% increase every year. The reality is we get over 4% every year. So just something to keep in mind for that.
And is that property taxes and other fees, or is that just new property taxes?
I just did it based on the tax levy, so.
Oh, okay.
Because the policy is against the tax levy.
Right, then that, but I wasn't sure if you were looking, because there are other revenues that, it's not a lot, but it's not part of the levy. So you did answer my question.
Yep. I also put in there that there would be I just picked a number, 10% of Marshall Park could be done via grants. So you can toggle that on and off and just see what it does to the,
Right.
you know, the flow of that. So,
Did you have both phases of the Marshall Park? I know there's like the more expensive phase and the watered down phase.
yep, so I did the full, all phases, and I did a phase one only in there. So
Thank you.
don't pick both phase one and everything, because then you're building phase one twice.
We can look at both. Are
You
they
can look
on
at
separate
both.
tabs? Or?
No, so the way I did it is, there's one tab that has everything in it, but there's a one, the first tab, you just pick Y, you say Y or N, and then it will automatically update the
I
graphs.
like that.
So,
And just for the public to understand how that happens, just because there's an interesting little nuance about how excluded that works, is that the excluded debt becomes part of your levy calculation. So you're adding to the levy, and the new debt is a portion of that. So you're not just saying, oh, we have a fixed 100 and the new debt is a portion of the 100. No, it becomes like 150, and what is the debt of that portion? So it does have a relationship where at some point, you know, if you take too much debt, you will easily exceed that, but it is, mathematically speaking, that is why usually you can, you know, towns can do that.
right, yep.
I just want to explain that because I did get that question from someone. And, you know, I just want to comment about the Marshall Park, just because I'm intimately not aware of the project. You know, that is a reason, the town meeting has seen this project, the scope of the project. And the people, you know, that are serving the Parks Commission, they have reduced the scope that they're proposing to be built. But there are reasons why their proposal is the scope of what it is of 13 million. And I think that's a good question to ask them, why is that? And it has really to do with how the functionality of a lot of the things that, you know, they work with one another. Like if you do, you know, stormwater, only 50% of the park, you still, you know, you're not really making the park, you're not really solving the stormwater issue. If you make 50% of the park ADA compliant, but not the other 50 that is actually part of the school uses. So that is a real reason why they reduced to the phases that they did.
So just on that note, if anyone is listening, on Saturday, I forget the time, I think there's another public hearing with Parks Department and the town's agent and the architect on it. They did one last week or the week before, and like 5 people showed up. So, from the public. I guess I was number 6, and Anita's husband was number 7, so there was like 7 of us there. But on Saturday, if you do have questions for them, that's the right time to kind of do it so that we don't bog down town meeting. Okay, the other thing I just wanted to mention that kind of came out, maybe you've seen it, is that there's an Article 8 capital plan and an Article 9 capital plan. So 8 was what the capital planning committee originally had. I'm surprised they're in this order, but, and 9 is what we talked about with the schools pulling the projects they had on the original capital planning, putting in the primary school heat pump system as an article with the remainder of the money to come from some other sources. So we will only be voting, we deferred on it anyways. No, we had voted on it originally, and I asked Jen to make it a defer based on the fact that
It changed.
it changed. So Well, I guess it's only Article 8 is the way they did it. I thought they were doing 2 articles.
Has the capital planning committee met?
No.
Are they going to?
I don't see how we would, but
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they
But-
have 2 options, 1 and 2.
yeah, there's 2 options.
So, okay. Well, that's okay. I would expect the capital planning committee would meet to speak of what they think about these. Because I know, for example, Tom Alonso spoke about it as a capital plan member, and this is a capital plan committee article.
No, it's a town manager's article ultimately.
Yeah,
The capital planning committee does a ranking, but in the end, the town manager can redo that ranking. That's the way the charter's written. So it was voted upon by, I think, the school committee and select board to include it this way. Ultimately, the town will decide hopefully on one or the other. They can't pass both, and so it will be one or the other. So I guess we will, at this point, we'll just take a vote after hearing discussion on town floor on that one.
Well, who's going to decide what option we take? Is it the select board, or I'm not sure how that works?
Yeah. Come to town meeting and find out, man. It's like cliffhanger.
Dave, did we ever have something like that before? Do you remember?
Back in 1934. No.
I don't know, I don't know.
We need Dave Passios.
I know he's usually here. Where's Dave? I think the little bat signal, the little Dave Passio signal will come up on the roof. We'll see it in New Hampshire and he'll call.
Be smoke like the Pope.
Need the red phone.
Okay, anything else related to annual town meeting discussions? Those were the ones I think that we needed to just discuss. All right. So the next article, I didn't exactly know how to word it, but 2026 Budget Task Force recommendations, the select board is looking to recharge the Budget Task Force in, over the summer to restart some work there. We had a member on it last year, it was Evan. I would think that we would have a member on it again. I think they're leaning towards the same makeup on it. I know there was a discussion about having the public seats, at-large seats. I personally don't support that because I think you really need to understand how budgets work and how, municipal government works. And, if you want to get involved, there's ways of getting involved in government, and I don't think that this is the right one to be part of. The meetings are probably going to be open and take comments throughout them, but I didn't know if you guys had any opinions that ultimately we could pass on to I'll pass them on to Caesar.
I do have a lot of opinions about it, as one can imagine.
Okay?
I mean, it's not, the committee's, I think I saw budget task forces in other towns that were very effective. But the caveat to it is all the parties that are, that hold the budget are honest participants of the process. So, for example, Westford, they had theirs last year, and it was a very robust budget task force. And they were doing, the budget task force would say things like, and I remember this one because it was related to Parks and Recreation. They have a very big project, and they were like, you're using X amount of money of town funds to support recreation at this level. And they broke it down and they said, you know, you need to come back to us where, you know, you have a plan for, you know, these programs to be self-supporting within 5 years. And, you know, and the taxpayers are going to be funding this. It was, you know, and you would see that happening in the meeting, you know, meetings for the several departments to go and come back with their revised proposals. And they had their, of course, they had their baseline, which was, you know, this year we are requesting an override, and you need to have a budget, which the override not passing. And that was the same thing for the schools. You know, the schools did the same thing. And I thought they were effective. You know, I think it allowed to have very honest conversation about how tax money is being funded, is being used. It was very public, very transparent. But if we're having a budget task force where we're not really doing any work, or they don't have any bite, any power, that we're just gonna send recommendations that either the town manager or the department heads and the school department, the school committee are not really gonna take, I'm not gonna waste my time doing anything. I think it can be very useful. The other thing, I do think that, you know, I think what happened, I saw happening in Westford, and I think what they were doing was, it was a very big process, and they did use extra people to do this. But, you know, a lot of the things that they were doing, us as a FinCom do, because we just make recommendations. So if that's all they're doing, you know, we can continue doing our doing. You keep reviewing budgets and making recommendations, and people take it or not. But a very robust budget task force can be good. But, I mean, I'm not the chair, sorry.
Jen Duffy, 684 Flat Hill Road. Dave's in the waiting room and he'd like to be admitted to the meeting.
Say again, what?
Dave passed his meeting. He would like to be admitted to the meeting.
Oh, lucky you. You got that text.
I have just one thing to say, and unfortunately I have to disagree with Chris just like on this one point. I feel like community members on boards, on committees, on task force are extremely important. I work with a lot of cities. They send like 5, 6, 7 members to participate in different types of projects and programs under collaboration, procurement, HR, all these things. And they always include committee members. And those cities that do not include, they just have all these selectmen or all finance when they're coming in for procurement. It doesn't work well. You have to have, even if they don't have the knowledge, they have the questions, and they kind of round out things where someone in a high position of finance on a budget task force might not even think of that a resident might have a question about. So, you know, that's just my opinion on inviting community members to different boards, even though they're not at the level of what we think that it should be. That's just my opinion.
Okay.
Mike?
I think the other thing you got to balance is the size of it. You know, the master plan committee has had trouble meeting quorum because they had a 15-member board. So, and we're going to talk about that one in a minute. So the size does, I think, matter on it as well. Any other thoughts from anyone? Okay. So do we generally think we would, and I got to look for Jay too, do we think it's a good idea, I think, to,
Materialized.
what?
He's on there. Dave.
Dave passed.
Do we generally support the formation of it? I mean, in by support, one of us would be looked to be a member of it.
I don't know if I support, because I don't know what the scope of their work will be. If it's just another committee to waste, and the other thing is, if it's just another committee to actually use our town employees, because there are a lot of town employees on the way it was formed. I think it's just a waste of time and an extra burden our town employees unnecessarily so. So I think it's really on what they're tasked to do and what is going to be the results. I will not sign up to do anything that's really to just, I don't know.
Is that out there, like a proposal or a mission statement or a goal?
So, let me see.
Yeah,
I think
I'd
I
like to
just
see,
got
like,
the
a
charge.
deliverable,
Yeah.
what they're supposed to be providing at
Right.
the end of their,
And how they allow their members on? Or what's the process?
This is, the select board is creating the committee, is that?
Yeah.
So, I mean, first of all, talking about budgets is good. I'd like to see it, but my first response is if they're gonna do it, we don't have a say in it, and we should have somebody there. It would probably be, the first choice would be our chairman. If the chairman is unable to do that, then we can discuss who else on the committee would want it, but I would probably offer it first to the chairman of the committee, because that's, we want to send our best to the, that group.
Is this supposed to be an all-new committee?
in the red.
Yeah, so I think it would end up being a new committee. I'm going to send everyone the charge that I got from Caesar right before the meeting started. This was last year's budget task force, but I honestly don't know that I have time to be on another committee. Being chair is pretty taxing to begin with. So. And then I do think that, if we are pulling employees into this, doing it at 7 o'clock is a little bit unfair to them. But the counter to that is, those that work, having a meeting before, 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock is unfair to those members as well, so.
This is unpaid committee, budget task force?
For the employees?
So these employees are going to be
Right.
donating additional time, unpaid?
Yeah.
There was a lot of department head.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the thing is, what's the deliverables?
There was talk at Select Board about not having employees on the committee this year, but having the committee through Jen or the superintendent be able to kind of task members to do certain things.
Well, the ones I see here from the members from last time are town manager, school superintendent, town finance director, and the school finance and administrative director. So they're all salaried people. They're not hourly, so they go to other meetings. So if that's who they're planning on, I don't think that's this is part of their job.
Right.
So for those 4 people, I wouldn't have an issue with. I think because of the open nature of our meetings, of these meetings, and what they were last time, participation from anybody, any town, could be a town employee, could be, or just a town resident is available. They will be able to see everything, hear everything, and make comments at the appropriate times. So
One thing that I thought was sort of detrimental in terms of the process when I watched them last year, and I got to say, it was unique for that committee to have town employees. I don't think there have been other committees and commissions where town employees are part of a voting board of making decisions, whatever the decisions are. That I thought, I remember the times like, well, that's odd. Because they're not taxpayers, right? They might be if they live in town, but they're not. And that's the nature of our government, it's a direct democracy. We participate on the things that we do. But the other thing that I felt watching some of their meetings was, the idea of the budget task force is sometimes to make decisions or recommendations that are not aligned with necessarily what employees would want to. happen to the, on their department. And by having them as part of that process, right? And I'll use an item that has been talked about often is the facilities department, how we have two small facilities department in town, and that is not how it is everywhere. And when that was brought up with one member, I mean, it was with the school superintendent, there's no reason to beat around the bush. She said, oh, I don't like that idea, and she elaborated why, so that idea was put to the side. I'm like, well, they didn't recommend that. That wasn't part of it. So I don't think that is another reason why not to have them. One thing that I think the select board suggested is maybe having the town employees as providing data, assisting the committee. And that I agree with.
Yeah. Well, this is the select board's duty, so it's up to them to pick or, to pick who's going to be on the committee. I think.
I think they would take input from us.
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, input, but ultimately, to me, if the town manager, who is an employee, and the superintendent are both new employees coming in to be on the committee, if there was something, we want to do this with the police department, well, the town manager is going to be talking to the police chief and saying, hey, what do you think? That's part of their job to get their input and then bring that input back. Or to say, can I bring the fire chief or the police chief or the head of the principal of the high school to come in to talk with the committee to discuss this, just so to give the full credit. And that's kind of what I would hope the committee would be doing, talking to the janitors, if that's what we need to do, talk to them to see what's going on, because that's kind of what a committee should be, gathering. They don't ultimately have any power. They make recommendations that the select board would either, if in their power, to approve or to make recommendations. So it's not like the town manager has any additional power. She can't say, well, all of a sudden, I'm going to merge these three departments. That's not what this committee is going to do. They could recommend that, but she can't. That's not what they're doing. The select board would have to take the recommendations and then work with them.
I guess one thing, I've talked about this before, over my 5 years on this, in the last couple of years on capital planning, is I think if we're going to task department heads and a new superintendent and town manager with extra work, additional kind of activities, I'd rather see them pull together what they believe their 5-year plans and all their staffing needs are and what all their capital plan needs are for the next 5 to 10 years, versus and have that data available so that you can actually analyze data and you can make fact-based decisions on things. I feel like last year there was a lot of looking for data to bring back. There was a lot of, let me try to randomly find some comparable town which is in no way comparable to Lunenburg, to see how they do things. So I just I guess my thing at this point is I just question whether it will be an effective use of everyone's time, or if there's other things that could really be used that this task force could, kind of work in a future year. Outside of having plans that are agreed to, it's hard to have a budget task force that you're managing off of. So. But if it is charged, I'm sure we will find someone on the committee to support it, but.
Yeah, if they ask for one of us to be on there, we should probably submit. I would go if nobody else wants to, but I think we would want to be represented,
Okay.
no matter what the select board decides.
Okay, so I won't ask for a vote or anything on this topic. I think we had a conversation. I don't know if there was any final thoughts on it. I'll ask, maybe Caesar or someone to just listen to this portion of our meeting and kind of get these thoughts rolled into his in the rest of the committees. Okay, so the next topic on the agenda, if I can find the agenda. Committee assignments. So the reason I put this one on here is, one, budget task force, just get a discussion going on if it is started, who might want to do that. Municipal design is still Tom. Capital plan is still me. But there is one other one that, they had a meeting yesterday, actually, the master planning committee, which we were booted off of a few months ago, and then the chairman reached out to us and said, do we want to put someone on it? Mike, I know you had said that perhaps you were interested in it. I guess they meet on Wednesdays, which
Okay.
might have been
I mean, I can do that. I've been out of town for a little bit, so,
yeah,
yeah. I'll talk to Tim and see what, the next time they're meeting.
okay. Did anyone else want to take on that one?
No, cool.
Okay. I'll say that, yeah, Mike, you can be our representative. I think the planning board actually needs to recharge to put us back in as an official member. But I will start that. I'll start that discussion with Tim. So those are kind of the four big ones I think that we need to be involved with. Capital planning is actually it's the weirdest one. It's actually a 3-year term for whoever you put on it, which I guess makes sense for consistency, but so this would be my last sworn-in year associated with capital planning. And I don't mind continuing with that one.
I was going to ask you, not that I'm offering myself, but I know you have a pretty demanding schedule.
I'll continue on it for now. Yeah. I think one of the things that I'll get to that in a minute, I guess. Okay. The next one up was any additional budget discussions or, has everyone looked at the 2025 Budget Task Force recommendations? I know they were briefed to us, but I forget where in the, Tanya, that might have been your first meeting or something, and it probably was before Mike was on. I think they're in our SharePoint somewhere.
They are somewhere.
You may want to take a look at them. I think some of them have been completed. The other thing that the Budget Task Force might want to do is actually follow through on some of the recommendations from 2025. And make sure that they're actioned and that sort of thing. Okay. The next.
Didn't they submit,
Go ahead, Jay.
didn't they submit their recommendations to the select board?
They did, yep.
And
Yep.
it wasn't it up to the select board to take action?
Primarily, probably so. I think there were probably some school-related one that school committee would take action on, but,
Yeah, half the members are on the school committee
yep.
or work for the school management.
Yeah. I mean, the one that we talked about earlier, for example, was that budgeting software that seemed to have almost started, and then I think the interim town manager kind of canceled it for some reason. But I do think that is, if we can get some budgeting software, there's a lot of data out in the ClearGov, et cetera, but being able to utilize it in some kind of fashion it would be pretty important for making these discussions. All right, so next on the agenda would be minutes. We have 5 sets of minutes that I asked everyone to review, so February 25th, February 27th, March 6th, March 13th, and March 20th. So I know I've read them all. I didn't have any comments on them.
I have comments. Same comments I had last meeting. I don't think they're complete. I think if you have a 6-hour meeting, 1 page of minutes is not reflective of the meeting. I know multiple members of the board had made statements and they were not captured. Multiple members of the community made statements and they were not captured. I did suggest at our last meeting that we use a transcription service to record these and then have our minute taker watch and go over to make sure nothing's missed. And I know we don't want to have 2,000 pages of minutes, but I do think we need to capture more than what we are capturing. And I know it's a very, very difficult job. It's very time consuming. I wouldn't want to do it, especially during budget season. But we have to find a better way, I think, to take those minutes in, because I think residents might look at those minutes and think that that's all that happened. And there are things missing.
Yeah, so I personally don't think it should be a transcript of the meeting
No.
in any way.
No?
And I think the critical things that need to be captured are our votes, not, every discussion that occurred along the way. I do welcome your input as to, how to make them better, but I think that it is something that has to be done probably town-wide. So,
I think the select board did talk, I remember listening to a select board meeting where they were talking about what you had just said. I don't know what their thing is. I do agree that, first of all these are recorded, so people, maybe you can't go back to 1974 to see it, but, the last 6 months or so, they're easily found on YouTube or on the PAC website, and if you wanted to hear exactly what was said, that's fine. I think it's important to get as much as you can, but I'm as obnoxious on the whole how much to put on there, because if you put too much in there, no one's going to read it, and if you put too little, then you don't, you got to at least put the votes on there, obviously, but you got to have enough so people understand what the gist of everything was.
Is that what we're capturing, just the votes? And we have to look
No.
at accessibility of senior citizens that don't know on YouTube? They
Well-
just go to the town website or whatever, or,
Yeah.
maybe there's an oratory problem. I don't think we close caption. So there's a lot of boundaries there for folks to just go and listen to a YouTube, like a record on YouTube.
Yeah.
I think they're good. I think they could be better. So
Okay.
I don't know what are the standing operating procedures of what we're including? Just votes?
No, it's supposed to be a summary.
Summary, yeah.
Yeah, the general public is supposed to have, be able to get the gist of the meeting. And the votes are critical, the motion. The accuracy of the motion, how they're voted, is critical. What is this new AI thing we see when we turn Zoom on?
AI is a note taker, so that will take notes for you, but Zoom also has an option of a transcription, and we also have a transcription service. Town manager did say that to us, and I don't want a transcript of the meetings. That would be awful. No one will read it. No one will read that.
Right.
So, I don't know about the AI thing. I do know that if you do go on YouTube, you can actually see an auto-generated transcript of the meeting. I don't know if that's what they're talking about. There may be some AI assistant. Well, I guess there is an AI companion on here, but, all right.
So I'll recommend that we approve the minutes that were presented to us online.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, roll call vote. Jay?
Aye.
I'm sorry, no one said, what are the dates?
I said them earlier.
Oh, yeah.
225, 227, 36, 313, and 320.
So all of them?
Yeah. We're behind on them.
No, I hear you, I was just.
Are we approving that we read them?
You're approving, once they're approved, they go in as the official minutes of the meeting.
Good. To the town clerk.
Yep. All right, so Jade, did you say aye?
I did.
Okay, Mike?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Tanya?
No.
Tom?
Aye.
All right, and an aye for myself. Okay,
Is there any action related to the minutes? I mean, I do agree with Tanya. I think we need to be due diligent about proving and, not getting in trouble with open meeting law and different things, but who is our minute taker?
Danielle.
Okay.
I think she does a fabulous job at it. I think they're the right.
This is not a
length
bash
first.
on Danielle.
No, but I think that, personally, I think they're the right length. I don't want,
It's not the length, it's the content.
okay. What I would suggest is that, Tanya, can you reach out to Jen about your concerns? And then if she shares them, or otherwise, she can maybe get a little bit more training on stuff. Or there's actually tools that can be used for doing this. I know some groups have minutes by the time they're done the meeting because there's tools to do this kind of thing, so.
Is there an official guideline of what's supposed to be within the minutes, other than just a summary? I mean, is there something?
I'm sure there is. I don't know.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, everybody can look at them and have a different opinion on what should be there, what shouldn't be there, how much, to what extent, everything, so I didn't know if,
Yep. Okay.
Okay, so I think that's a
Yep.
good follow-up.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank
Do I
you.
need to report back to this committee? next-
You can CC me on it if you
Okay.
want, or just talk with her, and then, yeah, next time we meet, you can
Okay.
see what was said on that. There should be consistency across the town, too, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Danielle, I think you're doing a great job. I don't want to say that she's not.
No, I hear
That's
you.
a really hard job.
That'll be in the minutes.
That'll be in the minutes, that's
Definitely be
it.
in the minutes. Doing a great
be
job.
bold and underlined.
No, it's hard. It's a really awful, hard job, and
Right.
kudos to her, really, honestly.
Okay, any committee reports?
Well, so I don't know which time we had the budget discussions, but in our last meeting, I talked about seeking more information from the school committee. I sent them the email, I had CC'd you. I was waiting for 10 days until they get back to us. I never heard anything back. And then they sent us a memo. You received an email from Brian. I never received anything from the school committee. I find it problematic. It's all about transparency. Nobody's trying to do a catch-a thing, but there's just no easy way to ask these questions publicly when we have to discuss these things in a public matter, and then turn around and request. So I will renew the fact that I would like the data that we requested as a committee. I think it's missing. I think the school committee have not met the obligations that's on their charter as related to their budget. I did vote for approving their budget, which is part of the town manager's committee. I did not get we didn't get any clarification about anything, about their headcounts, about anything. It's crazy to me. And all I can say is I'm going to continue pursuing the information that I think we should receive. This is a matter of public records, and if I have to pursue that information through official public records request, I will.
Yep.
And I'm very confident I'm going to get it. And if not before, by our next meeting, I'll definitely have what I said we should have had from the beginning. And that's, I really just urge the, for the school department, who, I know, Tanya, one thing you said, like we should have these standards for everybody, and I hear that. I will point out that there are towns, departments in town that do give us the data that we are asking.
I agree.
But even if they didn't, the school department is something like 56% of the town's budget. It is a big number. It's not something that we should do casually, that we should do it, So I do have a problem with that. Following on that information, I did watch their last meeting. And this is the kind of thing that I think is so unnecessary, and just say it the way it is. They had a budget presentation. They had line item transfers. Among their line item transfers, they did call out the amounts that they were transferring and why. There was a line item transfer, I'm going to say 16,000 or 19,000 for copies. And some of the school committee members were like, an extra $16,000 for copies? What's going on? And they talked about that. And then they talked about moving some lines, some budget lines, to recover from the athletic revolving account. And they had to pull from several lines and blah, blah. And in no time, they spoke numbers about what are those numbers. So it just really feels, for me watching, intentional of not wanting to be transparent. Yes, we know the revolving athletic account is on the red. But, being in the media, not publicly speaking about it, it doesn't give me a good feeling. It doesn't give me a feeling of transparency. So I did go and request them for a list of their line item transfer amounts. And of course, I haven't received the information yet. But I did ask the ESE for the school department revolving account. And, not from the school department, but, well, it turns out that in 2024, and I'm going to speak about 2024, because they were $115,000 on the red. Basically, they spent $115,000 extra on that account. Then they put it in. That's not how it's supposed to run. In 2023, it was $169,000, and this year they are $120,000. Since 2020, they have been $178,000 on the red on that account. And I asked ESE, because he gave me, I just wanted to have this information before our meeting today. How is this handled? So what he said is, these are the transactions that usually go there, and if they're not there by the end of the year, then they pull from other accounts. And I find this problematic. We have run into issues like that about revolving accounts on the town side as well. The TCP building is one of them. And I think we need to review some of our financial policies and start putting adding financial policies related to revolving accounts, because there are many accounts. This one is one that is on that. The extended day, it seems, Chris, that you had a question. The extended day, it appears that they don't have enough funds to cover all of their expenses, and probably some of those do, and probably about $50,000 ends up into the school budget, gets pulled from the school budget. School lunch, I had a big question of what was the town budget, how big is those operations, so just the town knows. Right now, there's last year we received $880,000 to cover school lunches. The year before was $690,000. This year we have received about $550,000. So if school lunches ever go away, where it's being fully paid, that is the service that we are receiving. And if we wanted to continue, we will need to find ways to fund that. But anyway, I just want to, you know, we should speak clearly and honestly and be very transparent about any kind of town expenses, and we shouldn't be doing this thing in meetings of not talking the numbers, because it's just, anyway, it left me with an icky feeling related to, you know, it's like.
So the file that you put in the SharePoint on this topic, these are fund balances, right? Not expenses.
No, these are transactions, depends on the account, but if you look at the depends. So the extended day is one, there are the transactions of that revolving account.
I read this as fund balances.
Which one?
All of these tabs, like I have extended day open right now.
Yeah.
I think that's saying there's a $70,000
That was
fund
my
balance.
sum, I added that column, because that is the net.
I got you, but that's the fund balance, not,
No, because the fund balance, like if you started with, let's say in 2020, you had an extra $200,000 there, the balance is a revolving number, right? This is the result of their operations on each year. Does that make sense?
no, I don't think these are expenses on this. I think these are fund balances. This is how much is in their checking accounts.
No, these are expense lines.
Where did you get this? How did you come to this?
Etsy gave me this file. So, and I seen this in other, so like, so fees from extended day lands in here. They pay $24,000 in purchase of service. They pay some health insurance out of this. They use 192 in salaries on that. These are the transactions that happen on this account.
And Extended Day is a free program?
No, it's a paid program. That's why they have a revenue of 190,000.
Extended day is supposed to be a self-funded program.
Yeah.
Completely self-funded
Yep.
program.
It used to be until 2020, from 2020 until 2023, they were running on the black.
All right, I guess I just need someone to explain this to me, because I read these as fund balances, not as expenses.
Okay.
I think they're pretty much line item expenses, and then the negatives in that are the actual,
Revenue,
the monies that come into the program.
right.
So like for 2025, you have multiple,
Well, they're not done even, yeah. So this was the net.
well, he's still
Net of
looking
the-
at extended day.
Oh, right, ahead.
All right, so
Yeah, I asked sometime maybe this year or maybe last year, we, the town, have external auditors that come in on a regular annual basis to do an audit of the school and the other departments, and I was told yes. So maybe that's something we could look at if we want to, because I think that's where, you know, are the accounts being used properly? That's what an auditing firm would be looking at, would be to see if things are being done properly. I don't know if we have the capacity to do that ourselves, but if we have an
Scary
auditing
word,
firm,
right?
we can do
Outside
that.
audit is
If that's
scary.
what we're looking at, to
Right.
make sure that the money is being spent. If the question is that a thing that's supposed to be self-sufficient isn't, then that to me would be something that we, and they're just, because the school department can, move money around from, and they're just covering the shortfall all the time, then maybe.
I think this-
I would say to the school committee is, why don't you increase the budget for that, increase the fees for those things.
Right.
So that, to cover those things.
Yeah.
Rather than take the money out of the town budget.
I think there should be full transparency associated with all the funding sources, not just raise and appropriate, to the FinCom. Because I think one of the things that tends to happen is, and I think it's especially in the schools, is they get a grant fund for 2 years, and then the town just takes over that position. And I think we should stop taking grant funds if the expectation is, because someone on Beacon Hill thinks you need this type of person in your school, oh, and it's free. It's not free, because at some point you take on not only the salary, the health care, and the perpetual retirement benefits of that employee.
I would love to live perpetually. But, Tom, I think what you said is right. One thing, I did talk with, because I did go into Ezzy today briefly to ask him for information. One thing that he said was, just you know how we have, in town meeting, we vote on some revolving accounts with a budget? Those are done because by law, they have to do that. These funds here could operate the same way, meaning they could have a budget. So what he suggests, at a minimum, every revolving account that exists in town should have a budget associated with it. And at a minimum, so if you have operations related to anything that you're expecting to get money in, you should create a budget associated with that. Because when you create the budget, what happens internally on his system is that assigns limit to expenses, and if it ever passes that, everyone gets gets a warning. But the way, if we operate without a budget, without expectations, then we can easily go into the red and never there is any consequence to it. So the solution, the easy solution would be for us to start operating with a budget on every revolving account.
Yeah, I'm impressed every week with the amount of work they put into these. It's a lot. And again, I think if as a committee, we put together a budgeting tool, we put together a PowerPoint that all departments can use, specifically school department, that is embedded in it, a Excel budget or a program that we use that they can mail merge all of their stuff into, then we can see these line by line by line. And I think going forward, I mean, we can't do anything about what happened before. This is a mess. We all know it's a mess. It's ugly. But we can do something moving forward by implementing, I know this is a lot of money for schools, and I think schools eat up a lot of money in every single city and town, as it should. But it should be across departments as well. So if we did put one thing together that all departments could use for their budgeting, it would be a lot more transparent and a lot easier for us to read and a lot easier for departments to do. I don't know if they'd be up for it. And we all know the departments that have line by lines that are extremely transparent, and those are what we want to reach, right? So I think we should take all this and move forward with implementing an operating procedure of how we want to move forward and how we collect information from departments.
Yeah,
I can't imagine that the school, for the after-school program, that the school department doesn't have knows what the expenses are, because how are they going to create a fee, right? If they go, we got 10 students, and it costs $10, and we're charging $1 per student. That's kind of how they would do it, but.
Are there scholarship applicants there?
I don't know.
Where's that money going?
But all I know is that hopefully they do. But yeah, that's something that we can definitely learn more about and understand better. And I think, like I said, as we've talked about, with the right budgeting software, you can put it in there and you can say, give me all the expenses for after-school program. And and then, what's the budget was, and then you can look at it. But it can, accounting-wise, as far as people playing with putting money in and out, it could be fine. That's as long as it's being audited and it's protected and it's whatever the risk factors are being accounted for.
Right. Yeah, because like with the sewer department, with the sewer and PAC, we specifically talked with them about that, right? Like they were using retained earnings for their operating budget for the PAC. And we talked with them about that. With the sewer department, we ended up talking about accounts receivables. You're using your retained earnings. What's your long-term plan? And they're like, well, this is our accounts receivables. And then we had a long conversation about that. And it's a healthy thing. That's how you don't get into, over $100,000 in the red on your athletic revolving account, is when you're transparent about it. And can have honest conversations. So just we know that override we passed for $948,000, at least $120,000 is going to go to cover the FY25 athletic revolving account that's on the red. That is what that kind of thing means, you know, like, what do numbers mean? What these line items transfer and, you know, mean? And what I'm gonna do is now, every time they have line item transfers, if they're not spoken out loud in school committee meetings, I'm going to send an email with a request for public information, public records request.
So you don't have to do that. The Finance Committee is entitled to that information by Mass General Law. Okay? I know some people think the charter defines all of our scope. That's not it. That's, the only thing the charter talks about is how we go to town meeting. The Finance Committee has, by Mass statute, a lot of power. And one of it is to be the fiscal watchdog across schools and the town side of things. So if we're not getting information on that, that has to be raised, like you're doing here. And it is unacceptable. The one thing on this revolving account that I don't understand is, I don't understand the account nature of it. Like, what did it start with in 2025? If it's a revolving account, does it pull balances from prior years?
So the information that he gave me, so there's, you know, the information he gave me were the transactions that happened
Okay.
on those accounts. So the current balance for me, it's like, I didn't ask him for that, because the current balance will not tell me the information that I wanted to have.
Well, I mean, if there's a surplus in this
If there's
at the
surplus,
start of the year, then I think that's a different conversation than they're starting at zero every year. And what is supposed to be done by a revolving account is actually hitting the operational budget. And it's not transparent to us because it's not in the budget every year, because they're actually pulling money from other places. Then yeah, that is why we're in a problem in that department.
yeah.
And there should be complete transparency in it, and when they present a budget, it should include all the revolving accounts. And honestly, the rest of the departments need to do this as well, and we pushed for that when Heather was here, and she kind of refused to do it.
So I don't think there are too many others revolving accounts at this level of money. So just we know, I'm saying, like, there are not that many other places in town that takes in fees, right? Parks has one. They take, you know, I think it was about 50,000. And they are presenting a budget to the Parks Commission, and we're voting in town. So if you think about where there are places in town that we take money, there are not that many extra places like that.
The library, the seniors.
The library, yeah, the land use,
Yeah, that's
permitting, so,
The land use, I think it goes into, I think the library is a really good point. The land use, I think those goes into fees. They become part of, that's what I think.
And you asked
This
about the
might be
library.
something that the Budget Task Force, as a member of the Finance Committee, say, we're not getting enough information. We need to have access to this information, and this isn't, the way it's being presented isn't really helpful. And I think the original thing was, how do we make more money? How do we save money? Well, it also could be is, how do we do budgeting better? And it might not save any money, it might not make any money, but it also might let us make better decisions, or at least make better comments.
And do we as a committee need to put together what exactly we want? Because we can't just expect them to know what we want. Like, we ask for things like one at a time, as opposed to putting everything that we should be getting up front.
I think before budget season, I think Chris has done a couple times, had done some, we want this, and then we get some of it, but not all of it.
yeah.
Yeah, and it goes back to what
We've
you
been
said.
asking for a 3 or 5 year budget. That just doesn't happen.
Projection?
Yeah.
So what, they just don't do what we ask? Is that the issue?
They do what they can, I guess.
I will say that this past year, there's been a transition on the town manager
Right,
side, obviously,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
Last year, schools didn't have a business manager. This year, they have a new one. If you look back at the presentations that occurred when Michael Cassidy were here, they were to the level of expectation. They went, school by school expenses. They put in the head changes. They put in what their staffing plan was and how they were doing against that plan. But I think without that business manager last year, in all the Excel, kind of spreadsheets that we went through, and then this year with a new finance director, we haven't gotten back to where we were like 3 years ago. So at a minimum, I think we got to get back to where we were 3 years ago on the school committee presentation. And then I think it's more aligned with the presentations that we hear from other boards and commissions.
So can we give the new school committee like those?
Yeah, we'll do that.
Be like, this is what we need, this is what you need to do. If they're not doing it, then we need to take this to a different level. If they're not giving us what we need when we ask for it, then we have to think about the next step and how we want to, what are the repercussions of that?
Yeah. I also think that I want to talk about this not tonight because it is getting late. But at a future meeting, maybe our next meeting after town meeting, I think I want to get into a little bit of what do we think a full year budget cycle really looks like? Because I don't see the need to have budget requests coming in February and March. Why can't budget requests come in September and October and November, right? This is what I want to operate my department. And then when we get into the actual budget development, you get a little bit more into like, here's what I asked for, here's the deltas against it. So I think we can have a more efficient budgeting cycle. It may be longer in the amount of meetings we have, but the meetings themselves can be more succinct and to the point. So that's something I want to talk to Jen about, and then ultimately the new superintendent about, on how to do that.
100% on board with that. Because then it gives us time to ask questions and for them to give us answers and to have a conversation and to have a partnership and collaborate. And then it's not, they're presenting a 2-hour budget and we're answering 3 hours of questions.
Right.
And they go back and they have to come back all within a 1.5 month period. So I agree with that 100%.
Okay, so that, I think that'll be one of the tasks we should work over the summer on and work with Jen and Ezzy and the school business person and the school superintendent when they come online.
Can I make a comment, Mr. Chairman?
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Let me get the thing for you.
What?
You need the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's never
We just
been a
should
problem to
wake
hear Dave Rogers ever, so.
Yeah, right. It's apparent to me, just sitting here listening to this discussion, that this is the way that you can take from Peter and pay Paul. Right? And there is no trail, there's no audit trail, there's nothing. There's just a minutes of the meeting. And therein lies a big opportunity and a problem, okay? And that's all I'm going to say. The issue that I find, and I could never understand this, if they needed $15,000 for something, and it was over here, they just took it and did it. Okay? The other thing that I have a real problem with, and I don't know this person, I've not met her, but the business manager, what's the process for that? I mean, they have carte blanche to hire whoever they want. Have you seen her? Have you talked with her? Do you know what she does?
The school one, the school?
Yeah, the school, yeah.
Yes, Dr.
Yeah, there are these opportunities or holes in the system that absolutely throws out accountability, and it's just we couldn't run a business like this, I'll tell you. So thank you. That's all I have.
Yeah, I mean, my own personal opinion on that is that I think the state has set it up that way on purpose. Town votes on one line item on the budget. That's it, right? One line.
Sure.
Line.
Yeah.
And then the school committee after that is in charge of,
There's no oversight.
Well, the school
the
committee,
school committee has the oversight.
and they do, if you watch the school committee, you'll hear them say like, oh, we are moving money from here to there, and that's where it's supposed to be. That's the way it's set up. Now, do I like it? No. I personally, I hate having the town and the schools separated.
Absolutely.
But that's, these silos, we have enough silos in the town area. Making it even worse with the school makes it harder, and I think, but that's the world we live in. That's the way, as our chairman said, the state wants it, so, and we don't have any authority to change it. So that's the way it is. But hopefully, and I believe so, there is checks and balances at the school committee level. It is this town, as was mentioned before, had some stuff that went on. This is a number of years ago, but, so I think we should be as careful as we can to make sure we do the right things
Amen, brother.
and make sure we don't, the money is spent properly. But as far as the school goes, we say, yeah, here's $40 million. You do whatever you want. That's the town part of it.
And for the record, I do not want to infer or appear to infer that there's any shenanigans going on here, okay? But from a strict business standpoint, it's not the way it should be done,
It's
my
just
opinion.
budgeting on the school committee if they have to keep moving their money around to compensate for their shortfalls in certain parts of their budget.
Well, I think what for me, what I see it to be a problem on their current operations is it's prone to errors.
Right.
And when it's prone to errors, we end up with something like saying we actually need 12% year over year, and we're still firing 9% of your staff. We are cutting services. And I'm like, that doesn't sound right? Like, can you tell me that a school budget is reducing 9% of their staff, changing services, charging for school buses now all of a sudden, and they're increasing what they're receiving by 12%. Doesn't that sound like there's something wrong with it?
Yeah, and with a business manager and a finance manager on board, these mistakes should not be happening.
But first of all, we don't know if they're mistakes. For
Well,
example, health insurance. There's no way they're going to know how much their bill is going to be in October of 2025. Because they have employees, yes. But an employee could have a child, get married, all those things, and move from being a single to a family.
Yep.
And they don't know. So a budget is, by definition, a guess of what the expenses will be. They have to, that's why they got to move things around. Now, as long as it's transparent, as long as we know why these changes are being made, at least at the school committee level, then, and also we have an auditing firm and all that stuff to make sure things are right, then I think that's the way, I know at the business I worked for, we had a budget for insurance, but we sometimes were under and sometimes we were way over.
Right.
And it depended on what those things were. But no one said, well, you made a mistake.
It's
How did we know?
not a mistake. They can look at the data. They know if someone's going to have a baby. That's a 10-month notice, or whatever, 9-month notice.
Well, your
But-
budget is as good as your budget practices. That's all I can tell you.
That's right. And if you have my thought is moving forward, we have a brand-new finance director. We're working with a business manager. We're working with a new city manager, town manager. I think it's going to get better, and then we're going to put some expectations out there.
Sure.
And we're going to be working this year to, I think it's going to be a good thing. I think it's going to be a good thing. But these two people have to work together and put together a budget that is more accurate.
Now, when you add to this whole scenario that we just talked about, The fact that you can't get the information that you need to do what it just throws up a big question mark and saying, come on, I need this. We need this to do our business and to give good numbers. And I think that's evident by the chief financial officer said that, correct?
Yeah.
And Izzy, right?
Ezzy.
What?
Yeah, something like that.
Everything, yeah. He's a good guy, by the way. He's very accommodating, yeah.
Very sharp.
So, anyway, I've taken too much time.
Okay.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, so obviously some of those topics we'll talk about. So it may be homework coming into our next meeting. Think about things we want to tackle over the summer. All right, important dates, May 3rd, town meeting. Our next FinCom meeting, the second in May, would be the 8th. So we meet 2nd and 4th, right? So the 8th would be the next FinCom meeting. And with that, is there any public comment from the public? Okay, is there any public comment from the committee? Dave, are you looking to make a comment?
That's Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. It took me a minute to get it to react to my computer. Dave Passios, formerly of Lunenburg, presently Presidential Highway, Jefferson, New Hampshire.
Dave, we can only, if you're trying to show your camera, we can only see the top of your head. Oh, there you go.
There we go. Sorry about that. I'm assuming you got the audio, so I won't repeat that. I just want to make a comment about the discussions that a number of your members have brought up about the annual audit and the need for an audit to sort out some of these questionable practices. First of all, my personal opinion, the $60,000 that the town of Lunenburg pays for its annual audit, although required by statute, is the worst waste of $60,000 I have ever seen in my years involved with the town. Case in point, the revolving account for the Parks Department, which anybody that was involved in that over the past 3 or 4 years, the frustration at the end, finally, when the Finance Committee dug in its heels and refused to move on a couple of requests until it was corrected, was never brought up by those auditors over many, many years. And attempts to get it changed by the town manager and the financial department under her were met with, we've always done it that way, we're not going to change it. So, you know, that audit that's done is to accommodate the requirement of the laws, not so much really dig in and find possible issues with the way we do day-to-day and year-to-year business. The task force, one of their recommendations, and to date, my knowledge of the recommendation to have what they called a forensic audit, which they felt would look into the town's operations top to bottom, would be tasked in coming up with these items that are not being handled properly and get them corrected. Izzy is, I think, finding things as they surface and recommending corrections, but not necessarily has the power to correct those problems. So when you get a chance to review the recommendations of the task force, I think that's one that really ought to be discussed again, because the select board just pushed it aside, said poo-poo, we don't want to spend that money. Thank you. And I heard that my name came up a couple times earlier in the meeting. I'm sorry, I was at another event up here. If anybody needs some clarification on anything that I might have historical data, please send me a text or email. Thank you.
We're good, Dave.
We'll let this one slide, Dave.
Yeah.
We missed you. We didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, I was at a seminar about the electrification of the United States from the 1800s forward. Very interesting.
I'm
Okay, any other public comment from the public? All right, any public comment from the board, commission, committee, whatever we are? All right. With that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Okay? Jay,
Aye.
Mike,
I,
Anna,
Aye.
Tanya,
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Aye for myself. Thank you all.
Have a good night.